Who knows what this is? Rubik's Cube. Does anyone know how to solve it? I had a friend in high school who used to put Vaseline inside it to make it go really quick, and he could do it in 45 seconds. How about you? What's your record? 50 seconds. Can anyone beat 50?
Every magic trick starts with a proposition, a familiar challenge maybe. But to make it magic, it needs a special turn, a promise of something unexpected.
I thought as a magician, this is ridiculous. Why should I spend all that time doing it when I can just throw it in the air, and when it comes down, it's completely solved? Like so.
The final moment of magic is the prestige. That amazing moment when something unexpected happens.
2, 3.
For Todd, the day is not just about impressing pupils at the Hazley Academy with his magic. The workshop has a more serious purpose.
Could you open, please, the envelope that's marked number 1?
Today, the students are about to get a deeper understanding of who they really are.
So this is the first prestige, the first result.
It is the students' own results from the gpi2 questionnaire that is to be their prestige moment. The moment that their own personal predispositions are revealed to them.
So this is about the way that information is used for decision making.
I look at the bigger picture and at the future possibilities.
Always changing, like gradually improving, relying on logical interpretation of data and current situation, which is kind of true.
I thought I was a visionary, and I did get it right, but it's a bit too much of a visionary.
It is this new insight that will provide them with greater confidence when it comes to making those important life choices. Even perhaps the courage to perform their own magic trick to the master magician himself.
Okay, I'm ready.
The Hazley Academy is a new academy in Milton Keynes with more than 1,300 pupils. 100 students have completed the gpi2 questionnaire. Today I'm leading the workshop, giving them their results. Plus, with help from Todd, the opportunity for them to enjoy a bit of magic.
We brought in Todd Lamb, the magician, to work with our Year 12 students alongside Ian Wigston from Glowinkowski in a creative way to try and bring together the work that we were doing around psychometric testing and making informed choices as young people with a magician that would really inspire youngsters to explore the way their minds work, their personalities are, through the vehicle of magic.
If you could open your blue books to page 4, you will see that there is a graph just like this one here. And the first part we're going to look at is to do with problem solving and implementation style. So how do you think and how do you go about implementing the ideas and the thoughts that you've got to make them work? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe to you the difference between somebody who's got an incremental preference and somebody who's got a radical preference. And one thing that's really important to say, there are absolutely no right and wrong answers here today. We're measuring your style. We're measuring the way that you do things. So as I'm describing the model to you, I want you just to imagine what you prefer to do, what you prefer to be, and we'll see how close your guesses are. So to start with, can you just write incremental and radical on the pages where you've got them there? And I'm going to start by talking about somebody who's incremental. Incremental people are people that have a preference for taking change in quite a measured and orderly way. If something new is presented to them, they might need to get some affirmation, some confirmation before they feel confident about it. They'll look at the practicality of something. They're not necessarily interested in theory. They want to sort out things that are relevant about today. Whereas people on the radical side, they tend to be more imaginative, but they're also concerned with how we get next year's or next 5 years sorted out. Radical people like to be creative, and they'll say, I bet we could do this that way. You're down there. Sorry, what's your name? What would you guess you would be? What's your guess from the information that you've got there as to what you would be?
I think I'd be incremental.
You think you're incremental? Yeah? Can you say what words on there or what suggests that to you?
I don't really like change to being like big steps. I prefer it to be quite small.
Prefer change to be small steps. Okay. So, who would like a bit more help in guessing where they are? If I ask you to guess by writing down on that horizontal line where you think you are from preference, can you do that now? On the notes below, it says note down your reasons for positioning yourself. Just anything that occurs to you about why you voted the way you did. So, what did you put?
Well, there are lots of things that I do that are incremental, but I prefer to think of the radical side and just look into the bigger picture.
Just give me an example of things that you would put on that side.
Like if I was in a lesson and we got given some equation, I wouldn't think of just one way to look at it. I'd think of lots of things that I could do with it.
Now, I think, is the time to have a look at your scores. So, could you open, please, the envelope that's marked number 1? Look at your results and compare them with your guess, and have a conversation with your next door neighbour about sort of how close you were and whether you were accurate in your guessing or not.
I look at the bigger picture and at the future possibilities.
Thought I was there, and was there. Epic fail. Yeah.
The other thing is that, Todd, you were saying that somebody had said they got vision, was it?
They got visionary, yeah, as if it was an award, you know. It's not that you've done the test and you got an A and you got visionary, but it's that you've done the assessment. Remember, there were about 13 pages of questions online, and the score that you see in your result is a result of actually adding up all of your responses. And I don't know if you noticed when you were doing the questions, because I've done this, is that some of the questions ask you the same thing but differently. And there, of course, we're testing for consistency across your responses, right? And so if you could imagine across 13 pages of questions that we are constantly reinforcing your answers in a way. We're trying to cross-check and double-check your responses so that you didn't get visionary, you are a visionary. And that's a very different understanding of those results. So remember, these are quite stable features, these predispositions. These are things that are set at, well, at least the theory suggests, at quite a young age. And then this is a set of predispositions that you will then work with through life. So you are a visionary, you are a planner, you are a strategist.
What we're going to do now is to look at one of the dimensions which sits underneath that first part, to do with problem solving and implementation. So what we've got on here is what you've got on page 6. And you'll see that we've highlighted rational and intuitive. And we've highlighted that because we want to tie this back to the first couple of tricks that Todd did.
Okay, and when you're finished, turn to the audience with your picture facing you. There we go, on the count of 3, turn your pad around. 1, 2, 3.
So how did Todd manage to read George's mind? Rational deduction, statistical probability, clever deception, or something else?
Some people like to use their gut feel. Other people are more rational. They like basing their decisions on really hard facts. You know, unless they've got lots and lots of information, they can't move, they can't decide, they can't make their mind up. And how you think you are on this dimension might have an impact on the way that you thought the trick was done. What we're going to do now is have a look at Todd and the early tricks that he did, and Todd's going to take you through just a quick little piece here to explain the difference between rational and intuitive in relation to magic.
Right, so when we saw the Rubik's Cube go up in the air and come back down again, the rational person would say, it's just a trick. Right? There's obviously a rational explanation for how that works. For the intuitive people, you might come up with an explanation that is completely different than the rational people. Rational people tend to be skeptics. No such thing as psychic ability, right? No such thing as suggestibility, right? It's all just deception, and a trick. There's a trick behind all of it, right? Whereas intuitive people are much more open-minded about, well, maybe he's using suggestibility, maybe he's reading a little bit of body language, maybe he's doing other things he knows a few things about the human population.
In the next part of the day, the students are going to learn about those subtle differences that affect the way they communicate with one another.
Right, we're going to try a little exercise. It doesn't involve mind reading at all, or magic or anything like that, but is something that I find in my interactions with people is quite important. The essence of a first encounter with somebody. So I'm going to try something. Miles, could you stand up, please? All right, how you doing? Okay, have a seat. Well done. Okay. Katie, could you stand up, please? How you doing?
Fine.
Good. Have a seat. All right. Two things there, right? Miles, okay, I went up to and bang, I got this gripping kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger handshake off the guy, right? You could be governor of California, right? And you could say things like, I'll be back, right? Very strong handshake, eye contact, all that stuff, okay? And then I shake your hand, right, Katie? And it was a little bit less forceful, wasn't it, between you and me, right? Just a little bit less. It tells us something very interesting, okay? And it tells us something that relates to the next exercise we're going to do, the question of extroversion and introversion, okay? And I find on first encounters with people that you can often judge quite quickly
whereabouts the students sit on the scale between introversion and extroversion will determine their behavior when interacting with other people.
Etc. We're going to be talking about your communication style and your interpersonal style, as well as this idea of whether you identify with a group or are more individualistic. And a lot of that can be read, as it were, from the way you shake hands, the way you approach people in social situations.
Thanks, Todd. What we're going to do now is look at, in a similar way, the different dimensions of this model. And I will just reiterate something that we said right at the outset. There's nothing better or worse about being one side or another. It is about you, your personality.
The students then mark down their own assessment of where they sit on the introversion-extroversion scale.
Where have you gone, Carl? I've put down as introvert, but I'd like to say I'm more extrovert, but I just think the results will end up showing that I'm a more introvert.
Yeah.
I put myself as more extrovert than introversion.
Man after my own heart.
In the final part of the day, we help the students bring all their learning together. For this is when Todd shows them how to do their own card trick. It is a trick that can be found in any popular magic book, but the students need to dress it up a bit to create that prestige moment.
And so you're going to walk away with a very simple technique that then you get to create something around you. So I wonder if you could just give those a little mix. Now she's going to do this fantastic flowery shuffle, I'm sure. Sonia's going to select one card, totally free choice. I'd like you to look at that card, memorize that card, burn the image of that card into your mind. You imagine a deck of cards spread out in front of you, and my finger is going to move across the deck of cards, and it's going to stop just where your card is. Just about there, isn't it? Yes. Your card has a letter on it, doesn't it? It's not one of the number cards. It has a letter. Yeah. Okay. So it might be a king, a queen, or something. No, it's definitely not a king or a queen. No, it's got a letter. It's got a J on it. Is that right? Yeah. Your card has a J on it. So what cards have J's? You've got jacks, don't you? Jacks have J, don't they? Ah, no, but yours is something different. It's not J-A. It's J-O, isn't it? Yeah. Your card's a joker. Fantastic. Well done.
Right, memorize it. Yeah, you got it? You got it?
Yeah.
Right there.
So is it the three of clubs? Yeah. Good.
We've covered quite a lot of ground. We started by looking at the icebreaker and by asking you how you thought that first trick was done. And we looked at whether you were rational or intuitive from preference. And then we've looked at your communication and interpersonal style and seen how confidence can come from many different routes. So you can be confident as an extrovert, you can be confident as an introvert. What we're going to do here is to explore how it is that we generate ideas, but also how it is that we sell those ideas.
As the students discuss whether they are developing or transforming, internalizing or externalizing, Todd and I help clarify the concepts.
Internalize and externalize.
So internalize, you tend not to share those ideas. You tend to just keep them to yourself and think through them. It's a bit like the introverted stuff. Whereas externalize is you need to talk about what you're doing. Okay. So if you're developing, you might say, well, you know, I'm thinking about making this little modification.
I'm not sure about this.
A really cool thing for them.
Yeah.
If you're internalizing, you just go and do it and tinker, right? Whereas transforming, again, if you internalize it, you just go quietly about it and boom, do it. Whereas externalize, you say, I'm thinking of changing the whole way we do things here, right? And you would then share that and need to externalize and talk to everybody about how you came to that decision.
You do learn a lot about how your mind actually works, because it's interesting seeing what you think you're going to be compared to what you actually are. It means I know what I'm suitable for, basically, so I know like what sort of path I can take using the skills that I now know I have.
The magic was a really useful element to add with the characteristics we learnt about, because it really helped us to understand how mind works, as well as knowing what characteristics and traits you have.
And first and foremost, the key messages were about young people understanding their personalities, but with the addition of trying to understand how they saw magic differently, how they responded to magic differently because of their particular predispositions and their particular profiles, just added something special to the 2 days. And to add to that, the fact that they also learned a magic trick just rounded off the program in its entirety. It was fantastic.
Okay, here you go. Come pick a card.
Pick a card. Okay, I'm ready. Okay, I've got one embedded into my mind. Okay.
Alright, cool. You see your card in the room?
I do see my card.
How long have you been a magician for?
35 years.
Oh, right. And what do you get if you had a 3 and 5?
I think that's 8 miles.
And did you have the 8 of clubs?
I did indeed. Well done.